Thank you, Tim, and good afternoon, everyone. I too acknowledge the traditional owners, lands on which we meet, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, pay my respects to elders past and present. Thank you so much to WA Mining Club. I'm honoured, I'm thrilled to have this opportunity. It's a bigger opportunity than what I thought it was, because I just learnt that Jordan actually met her husband in this room at one of these events 5 years ago. And so I now have a new KPI. Hopefully my charts and slides stir the passion in the room, and maybe in 5 years' time, if I ever get invited back again, someone will be just ready to go on mat leave. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see if the charts stir the passions or not. Cool. So there's a word in that title which I could have changed, but I chose not to. The word post. We are not post Hormuz, of course. It was when I drafted it a month ago, but I kept it there because it is a presentation and a discussion today very much about not next week or next month or next year, but the world which we will inhabit for the rest of our working lives. So very happy to keep it with that title. So this was Uncle Ellis in No Country for Old Men, Tommy Lee Jones's uncle in the movie. You can't stop what's coming. You got to take the world for what it is, and that's very much the theme or the philosophy that underpins this presentation, and I'll return to it at the end. So what is the world we inhabit? Past 30 years, coming out of the Cold War, the world has become progressively more integrated. The economy is based on mutual trust, efficient supply chains. Coming out of the Cold War, it was called the end of history, and that world no longer exists. There is a mistrust deficit across the world, and none of this ends when Trump leaves office. The drivers are very much fundamental, they are structural, they are baked in, and so the world economy now is not built for the world that we will inhabit for the rest of our working lives. You see it everywhere in the data. There's a mistake in that slide, which I noticed this morning. Let me know if you can spot it. Global military expenditure on the left. Does it reach 6 trillion? I don't know, but it definitely gets north of 4 trillion over the coming decade. And it's not just the quantum of spend, the direction, the allocation of spending, the types of technology that are going to underpin future warfare are changing rapidly. Right-hand side, share of imports subject to trade restrictions. Neoclassical economics is dead. Long live industry policy. As Tim said, started my career at the Productivity Commission, and it was all about efficiency. It was all about bringing down those trade barriers and finding the most efficient place in the world to conduct business. That is no longer the case. All sorts of trade policy used to secure sovereign supply chains. And all that was before the latest conflict, centred on a body of water just 30 kilometres wide. 30 kilometres. That is pretty much from here to the Soys Valley pub. A place where coincidentally I consumed an inordinate amount of secondhand smoke in my childhood, because that's where Dad played footy. But, you know, it's been at the centre of human history and human conflict and human trade for generations. the Islamic caliphates, the Romans, the Greeks, the ancient Persians, into the Portuguese, the Americans, the Brits, an incredibly important body of water, 30 kilometres wide, but shipping channels only a kilometre wide. And very quickly we learned that even in this digital age, we very much rely on physical choke points across the world. And we really learned very quickly the important role that hydrocarbons play in the global economy, not just for energy, but for everything. Chemicals, plastics, even those little lock the gate signs, oil-derived product. God bless them. But the most important sort of consequence to come out of it is the lessons that have been learnt across the world. Tehran's giddy with excitement. Moscow has learnt, Moscow knew, the rest of the world learnt that really your power on the global stage is determined by your access to energy plugged into your industrial defence complex. Beijing's learnt the limitations of US power. You look at even across the Western world, the United Kingdom, Canada. Look at the United Kingdom. Your Prime Minister talking about uranium, talking about reopening the North Sea. Lessons are being learnt. Has Brussels learnt lessons? Probably not. Probably not. They'll probably convene a citizens' assembly and organise or plan for a white paper with a 12-month stakeholder consultation process. But the rest of the world is certainly learning lessons. What else have I got? Okay, here's a bunch of trends, important shifts that we need to be aware of. And I've already spoken about defence, but the full supply chain matters now. Right back to what's in the ground. And that's why there is so much attention on us at the moment as a mining jurisdiction. Every part of the supply chain matters. The build-out of AI infrastructure. Data centres aren't just homogeneous blocks of steel and concrete with servers in them. They are calibrated to the industries and the sectors that they serve. They have different energy needs depending on whether they are training or inference centres. It is not just a simple, consistent, as I said, homogeneous good. It matters where they're built and how they're built. It is a new fundamental part of the global economy. Electrification. The big $1 million question is, okay, so EVs have run off the shelves throughout this period. Lots more solar panels put up. Big question is always, will that habit stick? Will those elevated adoption rates remain elevated going forward, assuming that we return to normal, which we know is not happening in the short term? And happy to talk more about what's happening over there in the discussion. I think it will. I think we're looking at a step change. Energy abundance. This one is not so much what's going to happen, but it's more what should happen. I mean, there is no such thing as too much energy in this world. The more energy you can generate and produce, it will find demand, and it goes way beyond data centres. And then this is the most important one, which is why I've highlighted it. It's one of the most important messages I have for my members and particularly for government, because it's really important in informing our choices as a country, particularly around energy. If you want to thrive in the years ahead as a country, it is not enough to be resilient. You must be indispensable. This is Google Earth satellite image. You know what I don't see there? I don't see the United Kingdom. I don't see the United States. We are in Asia. And China is projecting its power in a southerly direction. We need to be useful. We need to be useful in the world in the coming years to maintain not just our economic security or national security, but our physical security. We saw the importance of our LNG and iron ore exports in securing the diesel and the petrol that kept us in a strong position in recent months. The good news is we've got a lot going for us. You can see the battery minerals there, whether it be lithium, cobalt, graphite. You see the stainless steel and nickel, the copper, the everywhere, the everything metal, rare earths, that conduit between motion and electricity, iron ore, still a significant amount of steel required to urbanise and to decarbonise. A couple of important ones not on the chart because some of the analysts haven't caught up yet. Gold, it is the anchor for financial stability in a more dynamic and conflict-ridden world. It is going to play an even more important role going forward. The other one is bauxite, underpinning aluminium production. So important to have those lightweight, strong tensile materials to compensate for heavy batteries. Boy, we're lucky. Boy, we are lucky. We can be indispensable. Let's go to energy. Let's go to energy. Everything has been thrown at that line for decades. Efficiency, environmental policy, oil crises, global conflict, you name it. And every challenge, that line has given the don't argue. I call it the Hartley Reid of economic statistics. Maybe that'll get you excited. I don't know. It is an immutable force, and it will continue to climb. Right-hand side, I've already talked about the data centres. Left-hand side is an overlooked driver of energy consumption. And that is that 6 out of 8 billion people live in the global south in this world, and they all aspire to have a standard of living equal to yours. And why shouldn't they have it? Why should they not have it? Nothing is more important to standard of living than your access to energy. That's China's energy consumption per capita. And you can see that rocket up. Europe's has gone down, by the way, in recent years. What about Africa? What about Indonesia? What about other parts of the world? Need a lot more demand to lift people out of poverty and give them a better standard of living. Coming out of Hormuz, still in Hormuz, whatever, it's been, everyone's sort of retreated to their corners on the electricity, on the energy debate. There's team hydrocarbons, there's team renewables. It's a false dichotomy. That's what I call the false dichotomy picture. They all have an important role to play. They will all have an important role to play going forward. Let's look at hydrocarbon demand. I think this is pessimistic, but at the very least you can see that those enormous volumes of demand are maintained according to the International Energy Agency over the decades. Hydrocarbons are dense, they are transportable, our energy systems are built around them. It's not just generating electricity, it's literally generating or creating ammonia, urea. It's the chemical compounds that are so important to the global economy. Renewables. There's a bit of data work that CME team has done. Spend a moment on it. So these are renewable installations across the Pilbara, which is the orange dots, the goldfields, which is the green dots, and then most of those black ones are sort of Midwest. Goldfields led the way. Shout out to Darren Stralo here today, and the Bellevue Golds of the world played an incredibly important role in laying the foundations for others to follow. Fortescue's big installations are the ones at the top right there. Point is, there is a really important role for that technology in mining, in the mining sector. Here's the big challenge. Now this is where I get all Axl Rose on you, because I want to point at the screen. So for these people over here, there's a little dot there. For these people over here, little dots there, and dots there. I'm pretty sure that's a Cat 793 240 tonne haul truck. Pretty sure. You can zoom right in. You can take the measure. This is from Google Earth. You can zoom right in. You can take the measurements. It might be a Komatsu 830E. Pretty sure it's a Cat 793. Now I've got $20. The first person to come up to me after this presentation and tells me what mine that is, you can have the lobster. You only get one guess. You can't come up to me and yell out 10 mine names. But if you can guess what it is, I'll give you the $20 from Google Earth. I'll give you hints from 5 years ago. I have to keep going back to find one with a haul truck in it. Anyway, enough of that. So, electrifying heavy haulage. That's what this is about. Electrifying heavy haulage. The big technology challenge. So, the little sucker, that 240 tonne haul truck, I can't even see the thing. I know it's about there somewhere. I haven't got my glasses on. It's come up from the pit. In fact, it started down at the maintenance facility. It's made its way up to the pit. It's heading back down to the crusher. The closest crusher I could find is 1.6 kilometres away from the dot. I assume it's going to that one. I don't know. It operates 22 hours a day. 22 hours a day that workhorse operates. And it changes, its journey changes all the time. The reason why I've used this image is because you can see the old part of the mine in the top right corner. That's where they finished mining. They're now mining at the top left. Helps to illustrate some of the challenge. You can have dynamic energy transfer systems that we're looking at, which is like overhead trolleys for part of the haul route, but it changes, it shifts and changes the mine plan. But I am incredibly optimistic that the work the companies, particularly up in the Pilbara at the moment, are doing. The Pilbara is the great laboratory of the world at the moment. It's the biggest test bed in the world at the moment, which is incredibly exciting. I started with that quote. I'm going to forget the rest of it. Can't stop what's coming, thank you. Ain't nothing waiting on you, that's vanity. Can't stop what's coming, ain't nothing waiting on you, that's vanity. That's what the old dude says. It's basically saying to him, you can't, in the movie context, you can't do anything about the fact there are psychopaths everywhere out there. Just move on with your life. And so Tommy Lee Jones just retires. Like, he gives up. He's like, yeah, if I kill that bad guy, it's not going to make a difference. It's only partly relevant to this conversation. We don't change the fact that the world is going to require a heck of a lot more minerals, or hydrocarbons, or uranium. Other countries don't are not blessed with the same renewable resources that we are. Who are we to tell them what their pathway on the energy transition is? But where the quote doesn't quite work is, going back to that previous slide, the technology evolution, the technology innovation that occurs in our sector. When those challenges are solved, when those big, particularly heavy haulage decarb are solved, they'll be solved here in Western Australia. There are literally trillions of dollars underneath the ground in that AI-generated image, and it's everywhere. We'll be doing a piece of work later this year where we release our estimates around exactly what is in the ground, commodity by commodity. It's an incredibly exciting opportunity. This sector's best days are still ahead of it. CME's been going 125 years. I've got absolute confidence that we'll be going 125 more. There's much to be optimistic about. Thanks very much for listening today. I think we're going to do a Q&A now. Thank you. Wait for the chairs.
I'm not sure there's love and passion in the air, Aaron, but maybe passion for the industry at least, but we'll see what we can do. Aaron, thank you so much. There's obviously so much ground to cover out of that. But on a personal level, you joined the CME, several months ago now. I think you were here at one of our events. You'd just been announced but hadn't actually started. But it's been a matter of months now. How are you settling in? Is the job what you thought it would be?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I must admit, probably the smallest professional leap in my career. At Chamber of Commerce and Industry prior to this, all the Pilbara guys are in that membership, so very familiar with the issues.
Yep.
Familiar with advocacy, worked in politics before that. So, yeah, touch wood, I haven't stuffed up yet, but there's
I'm sure you won't. Has anything surprised you about the role? Any issues that you didn't see beforehand as being really dominant issues? The sort of things that keeps the mining executive awake at night?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the big difference is it is such a trusted institution that what I find is that often, because we're so trusted by government and its members, there'll be things members tell me, like really, really tricky things, tricky issues, tense issues, and they'll tell me things that they don't want government to know, and government will tell me things that they don't want my members to know. And so it's operating in that sort of environment where you've got to maintain the trust of both sides is a unique challenge that I'm working out pretty quickly. Yeah,
okay. Well, maybe that's a good segue into my next issue I wanted to talk to you about. Obviously, there's been a lot of debate in recent times when the capital gains tax settings were changed, and a lot of advocacy work from the mining sector, going into bat, particularly for the exploration sector within the mining community. Can you give us some insight into how advocacy actually works? I mean, when you heard that this change was coming and how it would affect the mining sector and your members, I mean, what do you do? Do you hastily organise a meeting with Madeleine King's office or Jim Chalmers' office? How does it actually work?
Yeah, well, just on the merits of the issue itself, CGT, you're right, we don't have a lot of explorers in the membership, but we're smart enough to know what's important in terms of a future pipeline for the industry. And so irrespective of the composition of our membership, we see it as our duty to advocate on that issue, and we don't give up, or haven't given up yet. We'll continue to make the case. Look, good advocacy requires a really long, slow, dedication to building and maintaining relationships. And so when the proverbial hits the fan, you can't all of a sudden just make yourself known to government. You've got to be trusted by them. You've got to be known by them.
Yep.
And so I've got to get across to Canberra as often as possible. You do reach out to the relevant portfolio ministers. So, at the federal level, obviously, the mining and petroleum minister is really important, but as is like the Treasurer's office and the Prime Minister's office as well.
Yep.
Prime Minister's office is really important to have a relationship with. The industry minister as well. But the other really important part of advocacy, particularly here in WA, is having a very good relationship with the state government. The state government itself is a conduit for advocacy for the state. And I think the closer you get to what generates the wealth, the more government understands, although questionable for some local governments. But anyway, that's another story. But certainly the state government deeply understands the importance of the sector, and so that is yet another avenue. Another avenue for advocacy is some of our larger members that have a national footprint, really big corporate affairs functions in Canberra is another conduit, but there's no substitute for having close, trusted relationships. So on the blower, Teams calls, whatever it might be, submissions, trying to think through what problem government's trying to solve, having some empathy, and trying to impress upon them the importance of not stuffing up what is the most important sector in the economy.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the advocacy on behalf of the sector didn't get the desired result. I mean, when you're in those conversations, are they just sitting there listening to you, or are they pushing back? Are they saying, no, we can't do that? Do they give you any indication that, your efforts are going to be ultimately denied? What's the tone like in these meetings?
Yeah, look, and we still haven't given up on that one. Look, certainly it's a mixed bag. I mean, look, one of the things that we try and do is get them up to the Pilbara as often as possible. We have an annual Pilbara familiarisation tour where we get East Coast officials up there. It's really important. They simply can't conceive of the scale of the landscape and the operations. And so, look, we generally find that we're well received by government. We have a very good reputation as being a constructive solver of problems, and so I've never really run into any significant issues. Government always has a range of stakeholders it's trying to please, but we make damn sure that the views of our sector are heard.
Yeah. You mentioned uranium in passing in your presentation there. Obviously hot on the agenda at the moment after the recent Australia and India agreement that was signed, 2-3 weeks ago. Are you sensing that some of the dialogue around uranium policy is shifting at all? Is there a mood shift at all that you've been able to detect, firstly within the WA government ranks?
Well, there's definitely a mood shift globally.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such an important part of the future energy mix for so many countries around the world. Of course, they're safely mining it just over the border in South Australia. And having no issues there. Look, I won't sugarcoat it. I think I still think we've got work to do to convince the required people that is an important opportunity for the industry.
Okay. You're speaking like a politician already. Has anyone tapped you on the shoulder yet and invited you to run for a safe seat anywhere?
No, absolutely not.
No comment.
I don't think either side of politics would be interested in me. I think I've given both sides a reason.
Yeah.
Although there's three sides now, isn't there?
Do you put it down to, if I could, really distill it down though, a lack of political courage from the sitting government? I mean, because let's be honest, like to the broader electorate, it is a bit of a hand grenade for them.
Yeah, sure, and you've got to pick your battles. And look, there's all sorts of tricky issues that we're sort of confronting. Look, another big opportunity for the state is the onshore gas resources in the Canning Basin up in the Kimberley. Enormous quantums of gas onshore, which requires hydraulic stimulation, hydraulic fracture stimulation. I talked about those cute little yellow signs in the speech. Look, there's a few issues there that you work through with government, and everyone needs to pick their battles. But they're all important issues, and we'll never drop it as an opportunity. It's incumbent on us to be a fearless advocate to government on these issues, and we always hold hope that we'll get some progress
Yep.
on all those issues.
Yeah. Electrification, it's been a nice headline lately, hasn't it? You know, the BHP v Fortescue pathway towards decarbonisation. I suppose, you know, Fortescue, as we know, going all in now, if you like, BHP preferring to wait until we see some more technology advancements. Who's right?
Oh, look, this is such a fast-moving space. Like, as I sort of said in the prezzo, it really is the frontier of innovation. And so we're all trying to work it out together. And so no one's right, no one's wrong. We're all just, all those companies are trying their best. They've identified the pathway that they each want to take. The fixed generation of energy is, I'm not saying it's easy, but it is an easier part. I sort of split the decarb into two parts: electricity generation, the fixed generation, and the heavy haulage electrification. And what I was trying to sort of get to in the prezzo a bit is that the former, whilst I wouldn't say is easy, is a much easier proposition than the latter, particularly for those big mines up north. Some companies have gone a lot further on the fixed electricity decarb, and I talked about, you know, members in the goldfields, but also, you know, those big Fortescue installations, you know, in the Pilbara, which is great. No one's cracked the electrified haulage. Some people like to point to this coal mine in Mongolia, which has got a fully electric fleet, but they're using 70, 80 tonne trucks. There's no overburden. It's a fixed mine plan because the coal's literally just sitting there. The haul trucks just take it from there to a conveyor and back, and you know, you can run it with trolleys. There's nowhere like
it a BYD.
Yeah, well, yeah, just about to load up the back of the truck. And that's why I say, once you solve it in the Pilbara in particular, you solve it across the world.
Yeah, okay. The union v BHP issue as well. I'm sure you've been a very keen observer of developments there. What have you made of the impact of that standoff? Because obviously there were concerns about broader industry implications from that. Of course, they had their strike action, last Thursday, that sort of, you know, came and went. It didn't seem to be too damaging to BHP's operations. I'm sure they'd have much more to say on that. But as an observer of all of that, are you worried about broader implications stemming from that?
Yeah. Can we bring the slides back up? Is that all right or not? I've got an additional slide at the end. See if they can do it. There it is. It's something I prepared earlier, Tim.
There you go.
This
like you
is
knew this was coming.
Yeah. Well, this is Australian iron ore exports vis-a-vis Brazil's. And when unions left the Pilbara there, and I've marked it on the slide there with a bit of text in the middle there, we went from strength to strength. The lack of conflict, the direct relationship between workers and companies is a model that worked incredibly well. Since that time, I think iron ore production up sevenfold. Number of people employed, I think, went from about 9,000 to 65,000 people. Wages are now the highest in the country. I think they're 57% above the median. Diversity and inclusion's improved. Safety outcomes have improved. It's a model that worked, and my concern is that becomes upended. My concern is threefold. Well, there's a few things. I mean, one is the signal it sends to international investors. Two is just, of course, the pure impacts on output, but also it's the productivity impacts as well. And so BHP was able to manage last week's dispute and activities well. Their primary focus was obviously safety, but they were able to maintain production, but it came at a cost. And it came at, and when you start, I mean, nothing's more important to real wages, long-term wage outcomes than productivity. So it'll hurt the very people that the unions claim to represent.
Okay. Just looking at the clock, time's rapidly running away from us. I know we've got a bunch of questions coming in from the floor, but we're keen to know a little bit more about you personally, Aaron. You know, that goes sort of beyond your LinkedIn profile or your Wikipedia page. And I'm actually going to start off with a question from the floor. Brendan wants to take it right back, and Brendan Siebel wants to know about your education background. Where did you go to primary school and high school? You mentioned Sawyers Valley. Is that sort of that's your hood growing up?
Swanview Primary School and
applause in the front row
and high school and high school. So yep.
Okay.
Is this rapid fire?
In terms of your career progression, it seems looking at the chronology of it that getting into Ben White's office was a big break for you in terms of your career. What did you learn while you're in his office?
Yeah, Ben was. I still puzzled at the fact he hired me. I just texted him when I was living in Melbourne at the 2017 election and said, "Hire me if you want to be a good treasurer." And then, for whatever reason, the bloke did, and I think he still regrets it to this day. No, he. So I went. I thought of it as a bit of a reverse sort of reverse laundering process. So I went in pure and came out dirty. Politics
will do that to you.
He's such a talent. He was so calm. Nothing ever bothered him. So I suppose that's probably rubbed off a bit. Don't sweat the small stuff.
And going back even further though, like for your progression out of your schooling, now that you've mentioned that, into your professional life, it wasn't a smooth line, was it? As I understand it, you went off to uni, but then dropped out at some point. What happened there?
I dropped out. Yeah, that's right. Footy was my life. Paramount nightclub every Saturday night in their late teens, early 20s, and then I moved to Bunbury with my wife, and I worked all these shit jobs like Midland Brick 3 a.m. just packing bricks and stuff for a labour hire company, and ended up I became a postie. I was on a little CT 110, fanging around Bunbury, the ages of 21 to 24, and kept thinking I had this gnawing feeling I'd sort of wasted my life a bit. Not that there's anything wrong being a postie, it was a good job. But then, re-enrolled at 24, I think it was, in economics. I actually stumbled across an economics textbook in the Bunbury Public Library of all places and thought
wow,
it was pretty interesting. And then, went back to uni and worked hard and, all sort of worked out.
Here you are. You spent the last chunk of your career, in an advocacy role. What is it about that part of the sector that's attracted you to it? Why not going into more of a business role instead?
Oh yeah, I mean, I haven't really planned it, to be honest. It's just sort of played out that way, just taken opportunities as they've arisen. I never wanted to leave Ben's office, but when Chief Economist at CCI role came up, sort of got asked a few times and eventually thought, it's a good time to get out. I like it. I mean, I sort of imagine, on a porch or a deck in retirement, sort of thinking back to what I sort of achieved, and I like sort of trying to have influence. I'm passionate about WA for a few reasons. My wife and I can't leave WA, and I'm really passionate about ensuring that the people from the sorts of areas that I grew up have always got opportunity, particularly those blue collar opportunities, and what I see from a lot of green activism in particular. Couldn't give a rat's about the fortunes of good, hard-working people, and so if I can play a small role in helping to facilitate more investment in the economy, so that good, hard-working people have got an opportunity to build a life, then that's a bit of a privilege.
Yeah. Well, speaking of opportunity, CME's been pretty vocal lately about our international competitiveness. Here, and maybe some of the settings that are in place now, making Australia a less attractive people to park their capital. How is the advocacy going on that front? Do you think we're making some progress to try to redress that? It's
a fundamental piece. It's a hard thing to prove. We're going to do a piece of work. I think my team's just learning about this now. We're going to do a piece of work later in the year looking at FDI flows, because we often make the point. And I do get it from individual members. And look, Dale's not here today, but he's been very public, and he won't mind me saying he's looked at some investments in, I can't remember if it was South Africa or South America, wherever he parked their latest investment versus Perth, and he's done a side by side. around why overseas was a far more attractive proposition. Look, I don't want to be too pessimistic. We've still got an incredible amount going for us. As I said, there's still a lot under the ground. Got all the skills, the capital, the networks, the supply chains, which is sort of here today. So I'm still optimistic, but definitely, the competitiveness gets chipped away at on a daily basis, and so that proving that point's a big challenge, but a fundamental part of the job.
Okay, and if we're sitting here at an event just like this in 5 years' time, I mean, obviously there's the goal of having someone else go off on mat leave, having met the love of their life in the room here. That might be a long shot, but on a professional level, Aaron, what would you like to have achieved? What would you like to have seen in terms of progress over that 5-year period?
Oh, look.
I mean, what would success look like for you?
Oh, look, success would look like the sector's overall output increasing, more young people in jobs, opening up the Kimberley in particular. It frustrates me no end that actually a lot of the traditional owners in the Kimberley are very much pro-development. But you get these outsiders who never seen the place and have a view on whether it should be developed or not. There's a lot of bauxite up there. There's a lot of gas up there. Look, I think that's a wonderful opportunity. I think retaining the competitiveness of some of those assets in the southwest, like there's a big challenge there in terms of the electrification, particularly of the networks as well, that we've got to get right. I want to make sure we get to, in whether it's 5, 10, 15 years, that energy is still competitive and the industrial relations environment doesn't escalate. We can finally crack the approvals challenge, and we see a significant chunk of those resources in the ground developed. More broadly, Western Australians really understand the importance of the mining sector. Really want to work on some of those people in the East Coast. They understand it as well.
Good luck with that.
Cheers.
Let's get to some questions from the floor. Daniel asks, this is the most endorsed question we have so far by some margin. Aaron, you were grilled by Four Corners recently and did very well defending our mining industry on carbon emissions. If Four Corners were here today, what would you say for the last word? What would your final parting thought be?
Oh, right.
That you can mention and not just...
No, I actually think they portrayed me pretty fairly. I actually thought it would be worse. It was the most intense interview I've ever done. Like, it was 30, 40 minutes, and the guy just went hard and fast and tried to really put me off. And so I learned a lot out of it. I'd say yes again, because I sort of had the kind of hydrocarbon versus renewables piece up there. I genuinely believe that there's a case for both, and I genuinely have invested time in trying to understand the heavy haulage challenge, and I'd say come back for another chat, mate.
Question from Barnaby Joyce. Who knew Barnaby was in the room? Or maybe it's not. Maybe he's out taking his dog for a walk or something.
Sit down!
Anyway, Barnaby wants to know about your thoughts on the current support, in inverted commas there, of the mining industry coming out of Canberra. Are they trying to kill the goose that lays the golden eggs?
Well, some of them are. So the 25% gas tax is calibrated and designed to kill that industry. Thankfully, the federal government knows that. So look, I think a lot of what not just the Greens, but NGOs in and around them have done has probably not done them any favours. They're clearly out to damage extractive industries, so yeah, there is some truth. There's some truth in that.
Okay, we're going global now. Emma asks, well, USA is our ally, China are our biggest trade partner. If tensions escalated and we had to cut ties with one, in your opinion, which team do we go for?
Just so they're both so important, and I know it's sort of sitting on the fence, but look, there are projects in Western Australia that just don't get up without Chinese investment. I mean, there's a lot of it's an interesting question. I mean, people talk a lot about even the themes I talked about where I had those icons and stuff. People talk about the importance of sovereign capability, diversifying supply chains, ESG. no one really wants to pay for it. Like, yeah, sure, you might find a little bit of a price premium here and there, but you know, Chinese investors are still important.
Yeah.
They're still important offtake partners. United States is obviously incredibly important as well. Japan's a really important partner.
Yeah.
I mean, you see them in a lot of things, not just the gallium announcement in recent times, but a lot of those oil and gas assets. That's a really important country. I would have sort of Japan right up there as maybe becoming one of our most important strategic partners.
Just going back to Chinese investment, what have you made of the federal government's push to get at least 3 significant Chinese investors in northern minerals out of the boardroom, or out of the investorship anyway?
I wish the Feds great luck. I mean, Northern Minerals, Brown Range. I mean, those are, for those who don't know, I mean, that's just an incredible heavy rare earth deposit. And as I sort of said, rare earths are central to the magnets that sit between motion and electricity. And it's the heavies that can operate in high heat environments. And so they're absolutely pivotal to defence applications, transmission applications. It's such an important deposit. We've got great collaboration in industry between that company and Iluka. Yeah, I mean, those parties should follow the law, and I'm absolutely in the Treasurer's corner on that one.
Yeah, okay. Final one, we're going to finish on power because we're running out of time.
You're going to get in trouble from...
I know, I can feel her presence. There's a
her.
Disturbance in the force behind me, I can feel it. Darth's just putting on her cape. Why are we not just building power supply of all types in Australia? Surely more power lowers our cost of power. Should the government build and own power stations, or should they just legalise and enable more coal, gas, nuclear, etc.?
Well, one of the challenges is that particularly where we've got a transmission network, those transmission networks have been built and predicated on energy that is dispatchable and base load. And what we're doing is we're putting, and has inertia as well. So those 3. And now we're putting in generation sources that don't have those characteristics. That's not to say they don't have a role, but you can't underestimate the challenge, particularly when it comes to augmenting transmission networks with that generation. And so a lot of the stuff you saw that I put up there from the goldfields is sort of standalone systems where it's a lot simpler. That's a very nerdy, technical way to end the discussion. Apologies for that, Tim.
Let's just get the Swiss sorted out.
Yeah.
That'd be a good one to tick off the list. We are out of time. Folks, thank you so much for your questions that you submitted. Sorry to those who put a question in but we didn't get to it. Aaron will be here for a bit, so if you really want to get Aaron's thoughts on the question that you posed, then yeah. And of course, don't forget, $20 up for grabs if you recognise the mine in that photo during his presentation. Would you please thank Aaron? And I'm going to hand back to Jordan for a more formal vote of thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you. I appreciate the personal touch from both of you about my life. But no, thank you so much for your time, Aaron. We really appreciate it, and for continuing to advocate so strongly for our industry. And Tim, every month we appreciate you and your presence. So thank you on behalf of the WA Mining Club Committee. Thank you all for being here.